reactions to a limited ceasefire deal between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are mixed after a March 19, 2025, call aimed at easing the Ukraine war. While some leaders see hope in halting hostilities, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky remains sharply critical after fresh Russian strikes, warning Kyiv won't fully back the shaky terms.
We'll support any proposals that lead to a lasting, just peace. But to do that, we need to understand what's being discussed and the details. God willing, we'll know all these details and our partners will discuss them with us, because there are two sides in this war, Russia and Ukraine. Negotiating without Ukraine, I think, is pointless.
The partial ceasefire, forged in the Trump-Putin call, has Russia pledging to spare Ukraine's energy grid, vital as winter blackouts threaten, but stops short of the 30-day full truce Trump pushed and Ukraine accepted last week, leaving trust on both sides fraying.
Russia has the advantage, as you know. They have encircled about 2,500 soldiers. They're nicely encircled, and that's not good. And we want to get it over with. Look, we're doing this. There are no Americans involved. There could be if we end up in World War III over this, which is so ridiculous.
Doubts over Russia's word exploded when it bombed Kyiv and Dnipro just 12 hours after the call, killing at least 10 civilians, while Russia claimed Ukrainian drones struck its border bases in retaliation. Proof neither side is backing off.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius trashed the deal in a ZDF interview, saying, "Attacks on civilian infrastructure, like the Kyiv strike that killed 10 the first night after this so-called pivotal call, haven't stopped. Putin's playing a game, and I'm sure President Trump won't sit idly by much longer."
Pistorius called Putin's energy pledge basically nothing, citing protections under international law, and slammed the Kremlin's demand to cut Western military and intelligence aid to Ukraine as unacceptable and a transparent ploy. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron vowed steadfast arms support for Kyiv, despite the deal. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas scorned the deal's values, stating, "Russia clearly isn't serious about concessions," and rejected any pause in arming Ukraine as NATO leaders warned of wider risks if fighting spills over.
We are in full agreement that the goal of all efforts must be a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. The announced ceasefire for attacks on the energy infrastructure can be an important first step on the way. The same applies to the start of technical negotiations for a ceasefire at sea. The next step must be a complete ceasefire for Ukraine, and as quickly as possible. The first steps are being put in place, but the objective must remain the same: a ceasefire which is measurable and verifiable, fully respected. To launch full and detailed peace talks, which will enable a solid and long-lasting peace. That remains our objective, and this is not conceivable without the Ukrainians at the table.
Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez took a cautious line on Radio Nacional de España, calling the war one man's crusade and saying, "Talk of a ceasefire with Russia is a step forward, but we're far from the lasting peace Spain and Europe demand." Finnish President Alexander Stubb shot down Russia's terms, declaring, "Ukraine's right to self-defense, backed by its allies, is non-negotiable. Not now, not ever," as Helsinki bolsters its border defenses.
The first step in achieving peace is a ceasefire. There are only two ways to respond to the proposal of the President of the United States. It's a yes or a no. No buts, no conditions. Ukraine accepted a ceasefire without any forms of conditions. If Russia refuses to agree, we need to increase our efforts to strengthen Ukraine and ratchet up pressure on Russia to convince them to come to the negotiating table.
In contrast, China endorsed the Trump-Putin deal, with Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning saying, "We've long pushed dialogue over conflict and see this ceasefire as a vital step toward peace," signaling Beijing's tilt toward Moscow. As Russia's bombs and Ukraine's drones defy the ceasefire, US lawmakers urge Trump to act, while NATO warns a collapsing deal could drag the alliance deeper into the fray.